Hi, my name is Marianne. My story is mostly about an issue I have had for years. I'm overweight. I have been like this for as long as I can remember. Up until a certain point, there was nothing odd about it. Until the day that made this story worth telling. A day that I will never forget. Several months ago, I realised that I had trouble meeting new people and expressing myself, so I decided to take an improv class. I joined a junior group with guys around my age. Most of them were high school students. It was never easy for me, and I've been making these small steps out of my comfort zone. But wait, that's not what this story is about. Out of all the guys I met at improv, there was one named Josh. He was the kind of guy everyone notices first. He's hot. Dimpled cheeks, big green eyes, the most beautiful smile ever. And what's most important to this story is he's fit. He's a swimmer. He's been doing it since he was a kid. So yeah, he's very fit, muscular, and broad-shouldered. Needless to say, the girls at the improv just adored him. Some of them would be obviously hitting on him, but all the time, he's only being friendly and nothing more. He basically kept his distance, you know? So of course, I was surprised when I noticed that he paid way more attention to me than he did to the rest of the girls in the group. But that could mean anything, right? My self-doubt at this point would convince me that it totally meant nothing. Like, maybe he needed a friend, or just someone to talk to. I liked him, of course, but I guess I just didn't let myself get caught up in it. So you can probably imagine just how shocked I was when one night after the improv class had finished, Josh came up to me and asked me out. I was completely lost for several minutes. And then, because I was still confused, I mumbled something about me being really busy, and I just left. Thinking about that moment now, I can see that I must have sounded very rude, not meaning to at all. I was just too scared. I couldn't stop thinking about him asking me out that whole night. I was pleased. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I've been deprived of talking to guys. It's just I've not been on dates specifically, but I have got guy friends. But Josh is a totally different thing. After not being able to fall asleep for hours that night, I convinced myself that it must have been some kind of cruel prank. And sadly, I did not have anyone to talk to about this. None of my friends were close enough. I have a younger brother and an older sister, but, well, that's another story. We're not that close. Our relationship is based on making fun of each other, and I have always been worse at this than they are. The jokes are mostly about my weight, and, I've been fine with that. I guess. Well, at some point a couple of years ago, I started to make jokes about myself and my weight, acting like I was comfortable with it. So, as you can see, asking them what I should do about Josh was never an option. So again, I considered this whole thing a twisted joke, because I thought that was the most legit option. Of course, my reaction was to try to stay away from Josh. Literally, I tried everything. Like, to pick a group he wasn't even in when we were doing our exercises at the improv class. Every time he looked like he wanted to talk to me, I would vanish. He wasn't intrusive or anything. He actually seemed puzzled and sad, since I never said no, but I never said yes either. Sure, he noticed that I liked him, so the whole situation looked like a mess from his perspective. 2 or 3 weeks passed like this, then the whole thing got really awkward. The further it all went, the worse I started to feel. If it was all a prank, Josh would surely be acting differently. He wasn't even taking any action toward his evil plan that I was sure he was plotting, but I had no idea what exactly the plan could be. So I started to take things into my own hands. We talked a couple of times, then we started texting each other. Of course, I was very cautious in the beginning, but when you are talking to Josh, it's pretty hard to keep your distance. After a week or so, Josh asked me out again, and this time I said yes. For the next month, I was probably happier than I had ever been before. As I said, I had never dated a guy before, and Josh really felt like a blessing. I mean, it felt like a dream. I knew that he was good looking and a great person, but when we started dating, I learned that he was also very kind and loving and perfect. He would come up with amazing date ideas, so it was not just about going to see a movie and having a coffee after. One night, Josh took me to the top of the tallest building in our town. It's a 40-something story business centre. His friend's dad worked there as a security guard, so he asked him to let us on the roof to watch the city at night. And all of this was a total surprise. First of all, it was just euphoria. But then I started to notice things. I know what you're thinking. Josh must have been hiding something, or there must have been something he wanted. But no, it was never about him. It was about me. It was about little things that kept happening around us. I would catch the surprised looks from people passing by when they saw us holding hands or kissing. It's not like people were pointing fingers and laughing. Not that bad, of course. But I didn't feel very secure being in public, so I quickly caught every little grin toward us when we were walking down the street. That was just the beginning. Girls at the improv class were jealous for sure. After one of the classes, I overheard a conversation. One of them said, "I think we need to give Josh a pair of glasses or something." And then the rest of them laughed. I still remember that moment in detail, word by word. That was the first thing that really hurt. And it only got worse when my siblings found out. They refused to believe me for the first couple of days. That was unpleasant. Then I showed them the pictures, and yes, now all of their jokes were about me and Josh. I just acted like I was totally fine with it, like I had been doing since we were kids. Even the people who were trying to be nice when they talked about us as a couple would still say stuff like, "He has such a wonderful heart to see past the looks." It came to the point where I could not take it anymore. I know that what you are about to hear is extremely stupid, but imagine all of the things that I just described, all piling up, making me feel worse and worse. So after another roast from my younger sister, I called Josh and said that we needed to break up. Yes, I dumped him. I wanted to tell him why, but I just didn't have the guts. I guess I mumbled something like, "It's not you, it's me," and hung up, which is an even worse equivalent of running off than when he had first asked me out. He seemed stunned, like literally the day before that we had had another amazing date. We were hugging and kissing and holding hands, and the next day I called him with this. I cried for the next 2 days. I didn't know what to do. So when several days later I headed to improv class, I was probably hoping that things with Josh would work out on their own in some way. Josh was there, but I guess we just both tried not to look at each other. So imagine the scenario. I'm sitting there boiling with anger, ready to cry, when I'm asked to get up on stage. I didn't want to go at all, but that's a rule we have. You can't skip your turn. Next, our instructor gives me the setup. I'm a kid who has to stand up to their bullies. I mean, how do things like this even happen? Later, everyone would say that it was my best performance ever. I put all my pain into it, and I got so deep into the character that suddenly something seemed to click inside me. I know it sounds a bit strange, but when I finished and everyone was applauding me, I felt like a different person. And what happened next felt like some kind of eclipse, really. I turned to Josh and said, "I love you, Josh." Several moments passed in total silence. It was just 5 seconds, but it felt like forever. Josh seemed utterly shocked. Everyone else too. So after a few moments, I felt how awkward it all was and ran off. When I got home, both my brother and sister were home. I was so pumped that I did not even say hi. I told them that all these years I hated our jokes, and I was hurt by them, and that I didn't want anything like that to happen again. They both seemed shocked and didn't know what to say, but it wasn't about their reaction. It was about finally letting it out. I felt like I had suddenly woken up. But at the same time, I don't know why, I felt that my story with Josh must be completely over. I thank the universe that I was mistaken. He texted me the next day and said he wanted to talk. It's even funny because technically it was him asking me out on a first date for the third time. I said yes, and the following night we sat on the same rooftop where one of our best dates had taken place, and it felt like we had never been apart. Long story short, we are now back together. People's reactions are still the same sometimes when we were out in public, but the way that I look at it has changed a lot. And this is why I decided to send in my story. I want you to know that you deserve to be loved, and what's most important, you deserve to love yourself and care about yourself. That's my story, guys. Thank you for watching. If you've had similar experiences in your life, please share the stories in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Actually Happened.